Bases dropped on a week of going long here in SDH AM. John, hear you there. It is Thursday, and we continue in the Red Clay with our Red Clay wrap-ups. That's going to be the first part of hour number one. Joe Gold, the GM for Decatur FC and the WPSL, is coming on at quarter till. Their season kicks off this weekend. Drew Dickinson and I are going to have the first couple of matches for you on their social media, and you can watch that at the WPSL as well. Then in hour number two, it's the Power Hour with Nino and Nico. We go over Copas and Major League Soccer and all the things. 11 o'clock, we hold up the light board and go added time. Chris Doran's going to be joining us, the play-by-play voice for Columbus Crew. Then after that, we've got a bit of a tease of an interview that Jason did with Demetrius Evstaftiou from the front office of Atlanta United, talking about Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Training Ground being the home for Uzbekistan come the World Cup, UPSL updates, and the rest of your news. We got stuff out of Spokane. We got CONCACAF W, Villa won in the Europa League, Casemiro maybe to Messi and friends, Southampton, Hull, Millwall, Wrexham. And that's just getting started because you never know what's going to happen during the show. So since we are in said show, it's that time to continue the Red Clay wrap-ups. And for this one, we go to Milledgeville. Catch up with our friend Dustin Jennette, head coach at GMC Prep. Have you caught your breath yet, sir?
John, I thought I was busy with graduation today. You sound extremely busy. You know what? Most normal people would say, hey, you can finally breathe. You can finally sleep. Let me tell you about my week. I have a kid graduating. They do multiple ceremonies around here. I'm a teacher, so finishing up the last week of school, the grades and everything. And then I found myself at the soccer fields Monday and Tuesday with my 7-year-old trying out for his first season of club soccer. So, and of course, I'm voluntold, thanks, Bobby, to be an assistant coach for his U9 team. So yeah, not resting yet, but we're close.
Yeah. Where is the trophy, sir?
I actually just put my eyes on it. It's sitting in the front office for everybody to come see. It was tough to give it back. I took it home Friday night, and it looked nice sitting in my house. But we have a trophy case here at the school, and I guess that's where it'll end up. Maybe I'll be able to get it for the banquet and get some more pictures with it.
Check it out like the library card. You know, it's just like I'm checking out the trophy, and you leave a piece of paper that says, "Will return at this particular time," you know, all that kind of thing. What was when you look back at the game in and of itself, we all know that it was a really interesting contrast of styles between GMC Prep and Atkinson County. Atkinson County likes to run at 78 RPMs, and that's a reference that only a certain demographic can understand. When it comes to it's called a turntable and an album, and you have certain speeds that you can run the album at. This is the highest speed that you can run an album at when it's on a turntable, for those of you that may not have them. Yes, turntable vinyl albums. They are making a comeback. Atco thrives in chaos, and it's basically trying to grab a comet by the tail or, you know, water in an open hand. But I thought that your defense, being what it was and as disciplined as it is, made sure that chaos only reached a certain point, and then it was kind of like banging on a door or a wall, and they weren't able to get through it. What were you seeing from the touchline?
I think that's a good way to put it. Our MO, really in the playoffs, but all season, is to dictate the way we want the game to go early. I forget what the percentage is, and I've spoke about this, and maybe I should just look up the percentage. And my favorite team is Liverpool, and Klopp said that if you in 10 minutes can go full press, full speed, and get an early goal, whatever the percent is, you win the game. And even if you don't get that goal, you put the other team on the back foot, right? And you dictate how you want to play the game, because ultimately we both have what we think is going to happen, what we want to happen. But if you can dictate, this is our style and this is what's going to happen, you have, at least till you get to the break, to halftime, you can kind of dictate the game, which I actually think that's what happened. Atkinson, well coached, great players, made their halftime adjustments. I've also said this many times. I'm glad I don't have to analyze this game, because I thought our second half was not great. But they made their adjustments. They came at us for 40 minutes. And, yeah, our defense, I said several times, they're out of ideas, guys. They're out of ideas. If our defense can hold steady, our keeper played great. Gavin, our six, winning those duels out of the air. We had one slip up there to give up that goal. And I knew that they were going to try to make it hectic. And it's one of the few scouting points I had was they're going to get the crowd involved. They're going to cheer for tackles. They're going to, get into the refs. The crowd is going to get onto the ref and cause the chaos. I wish we could have held our heads a little bit better. But ultimately, it doesn't matter how you win the last game. Win the last game.
Because you now have a trophy in a trophy case that you can flash around campus now. I was going to ask specifically about the trophy, and you kind of answered it where I didn't know if you lost track of it, how many folks got to touch it. Is it like the Stanley Cup where everybody gets a moment with it? You kind of answered that question, but did you keep your eye on it the whole time when you were leaving Thomaston?
I thought we broke it at one point. My keeper had it, and somebody threw him a Gatorade, and he decided to try to catch it with the trophy. Wow. The bottom is very solid, but yeah, it made it home somehow. It got a little bit rowdy in the locker room. That's when you have your real celebration, without everybody there and people can let loose a little bit. And I was told by a bunch of my middle school students they saw me dancing on TikTok with the trophy, so that's great. Didn't know about that until Monday, but yeah, we made it home with it somehow.
I'm going to have to investigate this with you on the TikToks. When I mentioned this group of seniors on the whole, and there's a lot of them, what sticks in your head about this group that finishes their careers there at GMC Prep on the high school side with a championship?
All the stress and anxiety that I think I was having ultimately was not anything about me. It was about these seniors. They deserved it. They played for 3 state titles. Some of them were in 10th grade, starters and important, quote unquote, to that team. This year, it was their team. And it wasn't just this year. It was a culmination of since they were 8, 9, 10 years old, the work, the windshield time their parents put in, the Sunday sessions with Coach Sam, one of our club coaches, working on technical skills. It really has very little, in my opinion, to do with like this year. I think it's what makes a lot of high school clubs successful. The difference between us and a bigger classification is all our kids play club together. And for good or for worse, for better or for worse, like they're brothers. They argue like brothers, but they also know everything that everybody's going to do. They know their tendencies. And I think that will also, it's really special because they'll be able to be friends for life with this and have this forever. And whether, I got a couple playing in college here at GMC that I get to go see. Some may go off to their bigger schools and play club soccer there, and some may just play, pickup or Sunday league or whatever. But they'll always have this together, and that's cool to me. I'm glad they got it done. They, like I said, they deserve it. 8 of them played in 8th grade, and that's the biggest 8th grade class, obviously. And the reason why those 8 got to play in 8th grade is ultimately because what they ended up doing in 10th and 12th grade. They were a golden generation, so to speak.
So you mentioned that. What did you learn about yourself as a head coach this year?
Man, that is a great that we could be here all day.
Sorry about that.
No, it's weird. Very rarely, I'm sure, do you get thrown to the fire like I did this year. The pressure that people accidentally put on me, and I know they meant well about, man, you're going to win a state title in your first year, man. Like, just keep them together, like blah, 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 That's really easy to say in the summertime or September, October, November. But at that Creek Cup, I mean, I left there really unsure of myself.
I remember.
ultimately, we lost 2 games. Islands dominated the 3A state title. Tallulah looks like they have a really good chance to win their classification in GIA. That was the start of me learning, right? That was the start of learning how to lose and how to recover and how to fix mistakes, and go into penalties with a couple of these other teams that we may or may not have should have went to penalties with, but getting those wins helped me deal with that kind of stuff. And to got really hard on myself, really unsure of myself, but learning how to compartmentalize things, writing my thoughts down, talking to those around me, like Bobby, about how did you feel in this situation? Like, it was all just an experience for me, which is crazy to think about that. Like, I got to the pinnacle this early, but it was an experience that next time around, like, I'm not going to say that I won't be stressed, obviously. And that's one thing Bobby told me. He coached high school for 14 years, won 3 state titles. And he's like, still didn't sleep on the 14th year, like, you still don't sleep much. You still go through every little detail, but like, will that be a little bit easier? And my other, we don't call him, we're not assistant head coach. We're both co-coaches, because we both work for the school. We're both just as qualified, but Coach Brent, he was first year too. He coached middle school last year. And, one of his comments is, I did not know this meant this much, and for us to just go through this together, and just, I don't know, just everything was so new to both of us. At least I was an assistant coach. He was fresh. Your middle school season ends and you just get to go to the playoff games. So yeah, it was a huge learning experience. Going through preseason, I mean, there's so much, man. There's so much. Like, what preseason looked like this year? What would I change? What did the practices look like? Stuff logistical, like uniform, like, it's just crazy. Everything was so new.
So when you look back at this, what is the most important thing in your mind about high school soccer in the state of Georgia?
What it means to the kids that play it. That's it. Like, you and I spoke for 30 seconds before we started. These kids can go play the highest level of club soccer. They can be told that they're great. They're the next this. They're the next that. And I hope they are. I really hope that they are. But the amount of just Instagram posts I've been seeing my friends post, and then the teammates are commenting on each other's stuff and how much I'm going to miss you and how fun this was. And you walk through the school. Yesterday, I was at a graduation ceremony, and the amount of people that stopped me, that whether I knew that they were watching or not. And I'm just imagining what the kids are going through. Like, all their peers get to tell them how cool that is, and they get to show up to school the next day and everybody tell you congratulations. I love club soccer. It's a huge part of why all these high school teams are successful, I believe. But what kids telling them, hey, good job on that win in Gainesville, Georgia this weekend, like against blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, they're not, their parents are coming, but we had so many kids come and paint their chest the other day. It's insane. So what it means to the kids is the most special thing.
As always, my friend, it's great to catch up with you. And it was really cool for me to be able to call the match with Luke Winstel over at NFHS Network. And, we're going to be knocking on your door sooner than you know it, because it's like, what do you do for an encore, right? And it just continues to roll through. I can't thank you enough for being an ambassador down there for us and letting us into the locker room and the day-to-day, starting with Creek Cup, working all the way through beginning to end. And like I said, it's great to see you. We're going to be knocking on your door pretty soon. Continue with your day in proper hydration as a coach and a teacher. We'll see you soon, my friend. It's great to see you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good to see you.
All right, Dustin, Jennette, the head coach at GMC Prep. So we go from one champ to the next. One champ to the next. And for this one, we go to Holy Innocents and catch up with Clayton Schmitt and find out what's going on. How does it feel, sir?
Yeah, fantastic. We got competed really well, and overall, just like it's not as much like a relief as it's like a feeling of validation, to come through and be able to, you know, especially get a result against someone that I had beaten us earlier in the year. So from that perspective, like really validating, self-satisfying, and it's been a fantastic week since then to enjoy and relish and look back on those memories already.
Where is the trophy, by the way?
It is up in our athletic suite at the high school right now, where since that happened in a span of 24 hours, the boys track and field won a state title, and then we had golf win one. Baseball is in the finals, and I think girls tennis won as well. So it's been a pretty epic run for the school, certainly above and beyond just soccer.
Because the reason I ask is because there are always those legends that we hear, whether it's a Stanley Cup final in the National Hockey League, where you get the day with the trophy and you get to kind of do whatever you want. The trophy comes back dinged, but that's part of the allure of the trophy. I didn't know if you got to keep your eye on it the entire time, if players and coaches wandered off with it and you lost track of it and you had to put a GPS device on it to get it back to you. I didn't know what the celebration was like afterwards, and if it was lost track of, or if you had your eyes on it locked in the entire time.
No, we babysat him exclusively until we got him back to the school. So there may or may not have been some unwilling participation in the, post-match festivities among our staff with the trophy, but it was kept under strict watch the entire time.
When you look back at this season, what did you learn about yourself as a coach this year?
I think to be flexible, and then also tactically and personally, as well as to sit here and be like very introspective in terms of our successes and measuring what was a really good start to the season. um, we'd say some hiccups along the way, but learning that, okay, how can I maintain kind of some objectivity here of, all right, we're playing really well, we're creating a ton of chances, like the metrics say we're doing incredibly well, but same time, it didn't quite feel like it was the right formula for us to be successful and be able to lift the trophy in the end. So, from that perspective, it was ensuring that we reviewed and assessed, and then, any idea that we had to try, we would at least explore it as a staff, and then see if it was valid or worth continuing or not. So, but we had to definitely think a lot deeper and revisit things constantly to make sure that, hey, is this really going to work? And is this going to work in, excuse me, in April and May, when, the season's on the line?
When I mentioned the group of seniors that went on this journey with you, what sticks in your head about that group?
Yeah, I think for each of them, the three seniors that we had, all competed at a really high level for club soccer, but it was interesting that they're actually none of them started at Holy Innocents, and all matriculated over at various points for their high school career. And for us, it's like it's kind of the same way we'd look at it when you get transfers at the college level. But when you're able to bring in someone that's got different set of experiences and unique traits, that, like, I think that adds to any team or group dynamic in a way that can be really beneficial. That they take like for us, the majority of our players still have gone through HI for middle or elementary school, but to be able to add some that came in with other experiences, I think was able to really provide something different. But there's nothing wrong with a homogenous group, certainly, but at the same time, that they brought a lot of different competitive experiences in, and came in just after the prior group had left that had won, and for them to be able to come in and reestablish the culture there was really positive. So that that they weren't like the most outspoken, certainly, group of seniors, but that along the way, I knew that they were going to be as special as any that we had, and certainly their record reflects that. I think it's only lost 15 times maybe in their 4 years, so a pretty solid mark that they've left on the program, certainly.
You get to see the sport here in the state of Georgia and, frankly, the pretty much east of the Mississippi on a bunch of different levels with your time at Emory, with your time at Holy Innocents. I've got a couple of questions that are tied to that, and specifically tied to your time at Holy Innocents. What has it been like to see the sport grow or continue to be this juggernaut there in the Holy Innocents community since you first walked in the door as a coach? What has it been like for you to see Holy Innocents be what it is on the high school side of things here in the state of Georgia?
Yeah, I think that was the allure initially that brought me to the school back in the 14-15 school year. So it was, I'd competed both at, I had several years under my belt already in college, and then I'd come off a couple of really successful seasons at other programs. And I think what appealed was like the potential, the resources, then the commitment to be willing to not have to cut corners, to ensure that a really or a deep and talented program was not put in a position where they had to sacrifice for the expense of a coach. So, and then it kind of has snowballed over that time, and that we go to now where we've got myself and then 3 other assistant coaches that all have exhaustive experience at club, high school, and the collegiate level, and just like the support for the program at the school, as year in, year out. We went from being a very good private school, and then a couple years later competing in Final Four and for finals, and then have been able to really sustain that since 2020, 2021, and I think get better and deeper each year. So this like overall the buy-in from the school and the community has been fantastic, and that part is the most enjoyable to be able to see and enjoy. As a coach and a person that's been associated with the program for over a decade.
So specifically dealing with the high school aspect, considering that you have the knowledge base of university and club, when it comes to the high school part of things, what do you think the most important thing about high school soccer in the state of Georgia is?
Yeah, I thought the article you guys pushed out recently encapsulated it really well. Like, this is a really unique environment, and that it blends at the highest level, elite competitive players and a sense of, pride and school spirit, and, like a direct link to, right, a bigger organization, above and beyond, one that you represent maybe 2 to 4 times a week at the club level. So it gives, friends, family, and everyone an opportunity to support something that is exciting. It's fun to watch, and especially if you have really good players and you're able to play a style that's entertaining and attractive. Our emphasis is that we want to get the ball on the ground and we want to play forward very quickly, and then how can we be dynamic in the attack? And I think that adds as well to, kind of a buy-in and an enjoyment where, it's not going to watch some or a game where it's just going to be ball out of bounds constantly, people just whacking it up the field the whole time. Like the per se uglier side of things, it could still be certainly effective and win. But I think it's something that that you're getting a really good product, for a casual person to come and enjoy, as well as from the school perspective, to be a part of a small school, but still have such incredible buy-in from the community and the families and the support that we get. And then whether or not the players go on to continue to play at the next level, they have that 4 years of competing deep in the playoffs each year that makes it so meaningful for them. And then for us, the rewarding part as coaches, when we go and play in another final like we did this year, we had quite a few of our recent alumni that have all experienced a lot of success come back and watch us, and then be able to share that with them afterwards. I think that's the part that is so difficult to replicate at a club environment, which still prepares players at an elite level. But those are the kind of bonds and memories that that give you positive feelings for what you experience, and then continuing to be able to experience that as an alum of the school, as a supporter, family member, friend, anything like that.
Clayton Schmitt, the head coach at Holy Innocents, hanging out with us for another couple of minutes, breaking down the season and some of the questions that we put out into the ether when it comes to the game in and of itself. I know that in each of the levels that you touch, there are those programs, and this is probably more geared toward high school. There are those programs that are still trying to find their way. They're still trying to grow and be a part of the beautiful game as best they can. But they're having problems getting that first win, having a roster that's got gauging the true interest of the school. Might have 12, 13, 14 student athletes that are there trying to find that first win. They're really grinding. First region title, all of the miles. It just gets burdensome and tiresome at points. For those programs that are struggling or new and trying to find their way to be a part of the growth of the game, what advice would you give to those programs that are trying to take those first steps? And it might look like a newborn colt, but if you kind of apply certain things, then you'll be fine over time. What advice would you give those young programs that are trying to find their way?
Yeah, I think that I've definitely been in those shoes a while ago now, but I think the key is, day in and day out is, try to keep the end in mind, and making sure that, you can celebrate small things along the way, but that know that, anytime you start out that you're going to have some ups and downs, and it's okay, and I think as a younger coach, in the regular season, if I lost a game or two, I'd get really upset and, be kind of down and moping, like, what did we do wrong here? You get really frustrated. But in reality, like the beauty of that is that, there's 17 other games that you still have an opportunity to play and make an impact in, and I think the biggest part is not to ever get, too high or too low within the season, and make sure that, you're steadfast in your desire to work hard, to learn, right? Assess yourself, assess your players, and then I think just being candid with that group of players as you're trying to build something, because they ultimately are the ones that become the initial wave of success, and then they have to then kind of empower and equip the next group of players that come in from younger classes, and help them learn, hey, it wasn't always lollipops or rainbows around here, and we need to be able to know that there were times that we were struggling just to get wins or just to make the region tournament or just to make the playoffs. um, I think that's the one thing that I, looking back, never have lost sight of, is that, like, remember that you weren't always in this position where it was an expectation to win every year, and start with small goals though, and I think that's a big key. Above and beyond that, I would say is, try to be able to be receptive to what other programs are doing and make connections, network, whether it's locally at other games or nationally at, like, coaches symposiums and conventions. Try to find out what people are doing that have been really successful along the way. I know that I've developed, like you mentioned, the different kind of networks and places that I've been able to grow professionally, is try to cultivate, network, and build meaningful relationships which with each and every one. And just to paint that picture, um, Glenn from Wesleyan, we played in the final. Glenn and I met in, I believe it was 2012, and we were coaching at two different schools in Fulton County at the time. So but just being able to then see him weave his own path and come back, and he's got Wesleyan cooking as one of the best teams in our classification over the last couple of years as well, is always great to see. And then when you bring in, schools from other areas that plug into your region, you get to know those coaches, you wish them success, and make sure that, if there's ever anything that you could do to help them out, that you're there as a resource, because everyone's going at a different pace and a different place in their own journeys, coaching wise. And you want to make sure that, once you've had a modicum of success, that, anytime someone's candid, wants your feedback, or just to get to know you and see what you did, like, always be receptive to those moments, and ensure that there's nobody that is, too too small or too important for you along the way to give your time and advice to. So, because at the end of the day, like we all want to leave a legacy, and a bigger part of that is in the like you all try to do to grow the bigger picture of the game and its foothold, and then the more lives that you impact positively through your relationships in soccer. I think the better the future is for the sport here and globally as well.
Is there one thing that you would change or update in the state of Georgia when it comes to the high school game?
I think it's still, no matter what you're doing, really hard um, when you're balancing out like the time that players get between their club and then spring high school seasons. And I think that that there's like a huge rush to get started, with like off-season conditioning programs and um, trying to do fitness after school, and then that coincides usually with the latter part of the club season in the fall and showcases and tournaments, events, league games that are being made up at later dates, um, college ID camps for players that are trying to go kind of in that sandwich period between the semesters, and then just it's really hard and physiologically we see a big toll. And for us this year did a little bit of different prep at the school level to try to help the players that all of them are fortunate enough to play at a meaningful club level, to make sure that we don't overextend them too early, and then trying different training methodologies to prepare in the preseason. When you have a certain number of days to prepare for things, what's the best way to do it without, burning out too quickly? And then you're still going to have some overlap there in January with other like club events and programs and showcases, and making sure that you're kind of keeping an eye on everyone's loads, like not just physiologically, but mentally. Like if there's an ECNL showcase, and then you're out from school on a Friday to play Saturday, Sunday, Monday, back that night, to roll back into practice Tuesday, to sit there and think that player is going to be able to compete at the level that is their like optimal performance, is I think a little bit naive. And just being able to manage that as well, and kind of protect them from themselves sometimes, in that sense of you get right into it, you're like, oh, we got our first game in a couple weeks, we got to be fit, but know that, hey, that this is just a step along the journey along this season, whatever that'll end up being, and like it's okay that you know we don't need to run you into the ground right off the bat here, but there's never going to be a perfect system or solution. I think that the GHSA has at least listened to trying to find a better way to balance the calendar, and started a little bit later this year than they had in years past. So that I think is a good positive step. But I think across the board, we just want to find a way to balance these two calendars. And unfortunately, as we see with different club entities, or, different entities within the NCAA, and then in high school, it's going to come down to, administratively, what makes the most sense to the people in power. And that's not, unfortunately, always aligned with those that are on the ground, either in the coaching or playing environments, to maximize what's best for both parties. So they're just going to be self-interested in the end, and we do the best that we can with that. But I do think that at least they've been receptive to hearing changes, and this kind of community of coaches that you all support. We're in a good place to be able to bounce things off each other and find ways to balance out those early season conflicts as best as we can.
I can't thank you enough this season for being one of our resources, and being able to reach out and catch up with you. And thanks for everything during the playoffs and the championships to help us out with our coverage as well, and being able to catch up with you on this version of you, because we know the university version of you, and we'll be catching up with that one fairly quickly, I'm pretty sure. Can't thank you for everything this season, and congratulations once again winning the last game of the year. We know that we'll be catching up with you really soon, Clayton. Good to see you, my friend.
All right, John, thanks so much. Take care.